Hi, and welcome to the Caterpillar Cross Stitch YouTube channel. My name's Ford from Son of a Stitch, and this week I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite hacks for putting floss onto floss bobbins. Now, I didn't post a video last week. That was because we had an update about the 2024 Caterpillar Cross Stitch Retreat. And if you subscribe to the VIP Stitch Club, you probably already got an email with information about next year's retreat already in the planning stages. So make sure that you sign up for the VIP Stitch Club because you'll also get 10% off your first order. You'll get a digital download of our top 10 cross-stitching tips, and you'll get an ebook with 8 free PDF cross-stitch patterns in it. So hit that link down there in the description so you can get all of those great perks. I know people use a lot of different means of storing and organizing their embroidery floss, but personally I really like bobbins because of how standardized they are and how easy it is for me to sort and organize them. I know people really like drops, or a lot of people really like floss storage baggies, and those systems really work well for them. But for me, the bobbin is the only thing that has ever really worked, and it has a lot of great features that I really enjoy. But no one ever taught me how to put floss onto a bobbin, and I had to kind of figure it out on my own, and I learned some tips and tricks along the way that have greatly improved it. So I want to show you some of the things that I've learned, either from other people or from just figuring them out. So let's take a look at a floss bobbin to start with. So this is a pretty standard floss bobbin, and you can get those in either plastic or cardboard, and some people do make their own. Some of the nice things about them is that you can put them in here with the side up, and you'll be able to see the number labels on all of them at the same time, which is really handy. It helps keep it organized. This is one of my girlfriend's floss bobbins. So that is the main reason that I really like it, because I can see the color while I can also see the label at the same time, and then they all stayed stacked up. I tried using bags once and they just slid all over the place, and I couldn't keep them neat and tidy, so they didn't work at all for me. But that's why I settled on the bobbins, and then the availability of these floss boxes, which are standard and designed to fit these bobbins, is also a big selling point for me. Now, most of the time when you buy floss, as opposed to getting it in a kit or something like that, it's going to come in a skein like this. It's going to have the number of the floss on this label here, and then it has another little secondary label that helps keep things flat. The first trick that it took me a long time to learn is that when you're pulling thread from the skein, the end of the floss that sticks out where the number is, that is the end of the skein. So you want to start pulling from that side. And one of the more common ways that people will de-skein and bobbinate their floss is by leaving it in the bundle like this, just pulling that end out and wrapping it around like this. One little trick that I have that makes floss bobbins a lot easier to use for me is that I start from this little hole up here at the top, instead of starting by sticking my floss in one of the slits on the bottom. And then I wrap the floss around that end. The reason I like to do that is later when I'm getting the floss off of the bobbin, I can tell which end is the working end and which end is the buried end. So this will just totally hide that end there. So as I pull from the end that has the number on it, it just winds out of the skein most of the time. One thing that I really like to do is also keep these two labels far apart so that they will keep the floss parallel. I do that by just gripping the small one with my pinky, gripping the numbered one with my thumb and index finger, and then just wrapping the floss around like this. Pull out a little bit at a time, wrap it around. I try to keep that distribution even so that I won't have a big bulge in the middle. Then I just keep on pulling it out of the skein, and if it's not been too manhandled or tangled, then it will just keep on pulling out. Now, another way that I like to do this is that when they put this floss into the skeins, they don't fold it back and forth over itself. They wind it around something round. And so this all makes a continuous coil that you can open up into a single loop like this. And so if I'm having one that's tangling up a little bit more while I'm winding it onto the bobbin, I'll open it up like that, and I've got this going around the wrong way here. I'll open it up like that, and I'll just put it around my wrist, and that way it will just keep on unwinding itself as I pull like this. You can also drop it down around a conical glass or metal thing that's slippery, and then it will just unwind itself around that, which also works really, really well. But then I can go pretty much as fast as I want winding these around here. I have a full collection of all the DMC colors plus a bunch, so I've spent a lot of time in my life winding floss onto bobbins, and this is the method that I found that works the best. I have seen people use like little winding reels, or like actually put a little tool into the mouth of a power drill and make that go fast. And if you have both hands free so that you can guide the floss into it, that works pretty well. You could probably even use the bobbin winder thing on top of a sewing machine in that way as well, and that would probably work pretty well. But this is the fastest way that I've found with the literally thousands of bobbins of floss that I have wound in my life. So I'm just going to finish winding this on here, and then we'll talk about some of the other features of floss bobbins that I really like. There we go. So now that I've wound that floss onto the bobbin, I'll go ahead and label it. This was number 809. Now, most of the time, I do my labeling before I wind it on, because I'm generally doing a bunch of bobbins at once, and I will get them mixed up if I don't. So usually it's a good idea to do this right before you start winding, but I forgot to do that because I haven't made a video in a while and I'm a little out of practice. So I also will frequently write the number on both sides of the bobbin in case one gets wiped off, or so that when I put it in the floss box, it doesn't matter which direction I put it, I'll still be able to see the label. Another thing that I do like to do, because I use a slightly unconventional organizational system, and you should go check out my video about that if you haven't already seen it, is I will write on the bottom of the bobbin what position that bobbin goes in which floss box, so that I can tell just by looking at it where it needs to go when I'm unkitting a project or when I'm putting away resupplies of floss that I bought. Now, most of the things I learned about cross stitch, I learned from members of online communities that I'm in. Things like the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Facebook group or the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Instagram can be a really tremendous resource to learn more about the hobby. So if you don't already follow those, or you're not already in that group, you're missing out on literally hundreds of thousands of years of cumulative stitching experience. So go and hit those up, and you can get a lot of great information there as well. Now, sometimes floss bobbins are not built to the best specifications, and the little slits at the end that are supposed to hold the floss in place are not really tight enough to do so. So for those circumstances, I have a little trick that I like, and I just have a little bundle of these like orthodontic or hair styling rubber bands, and I keep some of those in my floss box. And so after I've wound it onto the bobbin, I'll just put one of those around it, and that keeps it from unraveling. That's also really handy when you're putting either satin floss or metallic floss onto bobbins, because those are notorious for unwinding and unraveling as well. So that's another reason I like to keep some of those little rubber bands handy. Now, occasionally I've also had the problem of not having my marker with me when I need to do some bobbin winding. Either I'm on vacation and I had to buy another skein of floss, or I just lost my marker or it dried up and I want to do some winding but I don't have the marker available. In those circumstances, what I'll do is I'll use the technique where I'll pull the labels off of the skein, and you can see that I've already done that here and wrapped it around my wrist. And I will start just one or two wraps, and then I'll take the piece of the bobbin that has I'll take the piece of the skein wrapper that has the number on it, and I will just wrap my floss over the top of that label. And that will hold that in place for me. And then after I'm done winding all of that on there, when I get back home, I can just grab my marker, write that number on there. Again, I like to do that on both sides. And then this will just pull right out of there. So that's a really easy way to keep track of what color it is if you don't have a marker available or otherwise can't mark on something. I do know people who actually use that as their labeling technique, like they leave those labels in there permanently. And that would totally work as well, but I would be a little bit worried it would slip out if I didn't do something else to secure it in place. Now, I usually will take a project with me in a floss box. I think you've seen my project box a few times. And that keeps everything contained for me. But some people prefer to take their project in like a fabric bag or something like that. And using floss bobbins with that can be really handy, because if you remember, there's a hole up here at the top. The way most people use that hole is actually to just put the floss bobbin onto like a binder ring, like a clipping closing ring with a hinge, and that will keep all of the floss all tied together for a particular project. So that's the way a lot of people will transport their kits, is on just a binder ring with those floss bobbins through there. You can also use that hole as a floss drop, like for a cut piece that you're using. You can just stick both ends through there, stick them through the loop of itself, and that will hold the cut piece for you while you're working on it. So that's another handy way to use floss bobbins. They're a really, really useful way for storing floss for me, and there are a lot of different ways you can use them, which is part of what I love about them. So those are some of my favorite bobbinating hacks. What about you? Is there something different that you do, or a tip that you want to share with the other viewers? Put that down in the comments below. While you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That's how they track how well I'm doing here. So if you're enjoying my content, please make sure to do that. Other than that, I do want to thank you so much for joining me and for watching the video. For Caterpillar Cross Stitch, my name is Ford, and I will see you next week.